Hey, it's Kyle here, and today I'll be reviewing the Bad Batch episode, Tribe. If you haven't seen this episode yet, please watch it first and then come back and watch this review, because this will include spoilers. With that warning out of the way, let me just talk about my feelings on Tribe. Really enjoyed it. It was very entertaining episode. I think, I think a much more heavier and sadder episode in some ways than last week's episode, which was super fun. So I think that's maybe a wise choice to kind of have a little bit more lighthearted, fun adventure episode before you delved into the more heavier topics explored in the Tribe. Of course, I think what most people are probably going to be most excited about is Gungi coming back from the Clone Wars. Obviously, that's something we did not really know what happened to him after the Clone Wars. And so we got a little bit more of his backstory on his survival through this episode. Not all the details, but some of the details. And so we kind of know, he's not with his other young Jedi that we met during his Clone Wars arc. So we still don't know what happened with his other young friends. But he had escaped Order 66 and then was captured by these droids on his way to try to get back to Kashyyyk. Really enjoyed it. I would say I'm probably not as excited about this story arc as some people, because the story arc that Gungi was in the Clone Wars, I enjoyed, but it just wasn't one of my favorites. I think some people, that was one of their favorite story arcs in the Clone Wars. So I never had quite as big of attachment to the character as some people did. I know some people, when the announcement that he was going to be in this season, they were super excited. I was more like, oh, that's cool. But it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to see him again. But I really enjoyed this episode a lot. Especially enjoyed going back to Kashyyyk. I've always enjoyed that planet from, obviously being a big fan of Chewie, but then in the old Expanding Universe books, Kashyyyk plays very heavily in a lot of those books. Every time a book took you back to Kashyyyk, I really enjoyed it a lot. All the way back to the original Thrawn trilogy that Timothy Zahn wrote almost 30 years ago, I guess now, which had a lot of content of Kashyyyk. I've always enjoyed that planet. I've always would like to see more, so I'm really glad this episode explored the planet more, from the trees to all the wildlife we see in the episode, the spiders, the creatures that the Wookiees are riding on. Very, very cool. Obviously, this is when it gets sad. You see a Wookiee village has been destroyed. Then we do meet some Wookiee survivors who are just fighting to stay alive and free on their planet. Then we see the Trandoshans and stormtroopers. The Empire is obviously trying to round up all the Wookiees to take advantage of the resources of Kashyyyk. So we see that side of things. So you just knew, this is going to be a bad several years for the Wookiees. Despite whatever happens in this episode, it's not going to get better for this planet. Really kind of enjoyed the batch coming together with the Wookiees to try to kind of save this one little settlement and keep them free for a little bit longer. I really liked how quickly the batch just jumped in and was willing to help out Gungi right away with not really much discussion. I think in some ways, to them, it kind of is very similar to what they've done with Omega, just kind of helping this kid stay free. Also, I thought it was a nice touch that Gungi did have some moments of distrust. Initially, the batch, because obviously his most recent exposure to clone troopers was them executed in Order 66. I thought that was a neat little touch there. The final battle that we see in this episode, really thought it was a nice touch and kind of interesting how they involved the wildlife in it and kind of used the spiders as the trap. The final death for the Trandoshans was a little bit more brutal than I was expecting. Or basically, he's being wrapped up by the spiders and raised up to be feasted on while he's still alive, and is screaming. I was like, ooh, that's a little bit more of a brutal death than I was expecting. But he's by no means a good individual, but it still was a little bit more graphic than I was expecting in an episode of The Bad Batch. So overall, like I said, enjoy this episode. I'm glad we got to see what happened with Gunji. I'm kind of curious to see if we'll see him more, if this was just a one-off thing and we won't be going back to Kashyyyk anymore. But perhaps, as I said earlier, we know that the Empire is going to continue to clamp down Kashyyyk and take advantage of more, imprison more Wookiees, steal natural resources. So it wouldn't surprise me at some point in the future in the Bad Batch that maybe the Batch gets a call from Gunji asking like, "Hey, I need help. Come rescue me and my new family." So overall, like I said, really enjoyed this episode. Thought it was great, and hopefully we'll go back to Kashyyyk again. Like I said, it's an awesome place for Star Wars content. Let me know in the comment section below, what is one planet in Star Wars you would like to see the Batch go to in a future episode? I'm curious to see what planets you're rooting to see in the series. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time, and may the Force be with you.